Alright folks, check it out. We're gonna deconstruct this little generative loop thing here. So what I'm gonna do is let you listen for a little bit, a minute or two, see what kind of sounds are coming out of the board, and then I will start going backwards and showing how the routing is happening and what effects are on and what they're doing and stuff. So for now, just listen, alright? We'll just listen. Chat's gonna try to behave themselves while we listen for a minute. I like the textures here. There's a lot of murky, kind of muddy, but not in a bad way layers, and then there's some real clear stuff that pops through. There's some like sparkly stuff that comes through every once in a while. There's some nice gaps, some dynamics to the whole thing overall. I really like this. All right, so I think we get the general idea of this, and this is generative in the sense that there are some things happening on here that make it so technically we will never hear the same sounds twice, or at least the same stack of sounds. So let me start going back and explaining what's happening. I'm going to turn off some of the late stage effects, so the CXM, the polymoon, and the microcosm. So what we have here now is basically a couple loops being processed a couple different ways throughout the board. And so what's happening here is basically ending at the iridium, the amp sound. I turned off all the stereo stuff afterwards, but this is kind of the fully processed sound, I guess. So I'm trying to think of the best way to kind of go back and show this. A lot of this is being driven actually by the count to 5. So let me show what's happening with the count to 5. I'm going to turn this down and this down. So we should not be hearing anything. And if I turn the dry up here, when this knob is up, basically what I'm hearing is the output of my first matrix mixer, plus a couple of the pre-chain effects, so the preamp and Darkstar and Bliss Factory, actually. So if I turn down the dry signal here is actually this boomerang loop going through. So I'm gonna turn that down. There's a little bit of sound in there. I'll show that a little later. This output here on this matrise is the count to 5. I know it's way over there, but it's here. Obviously, that's that. So what's happening here is it's being ramped, so I'm going to turn the ramper off. So now it's going to stay. Well, why is that dry going through? I feel like it shouldn't be. So that's count to 5, and what I'm ramping on it is this direction knob. So I'm in mode 2. I have a just a frozen sample, and I believe right now it's going up an octave, I think. There's actually one other interesting thing that's happening that I forgot about. This is actually the dry output of count 5. Okay, so this is count 5 by itself. Sorry, I'll show you what happened just there. But the ramper thing is I'm sweeping the full range of this direction knob, meaning I'm gonna go from reverse octave up down to reverse octave down, and then going to octave down forward to an octave up forward. So when I press this button, that's what's going to start happening. So I just pressed it. And eventually we're going to hear it move in a fifth down. Yep, so there's one. And then it's gonna keep going. So we're still in reverse. Now we're just, that's just plain old reverse. We're at the normal octave there. And then we're gonna go down another fifth. There it is. And then the next one should be down an octave, reverse. There it is. And then I believe after this, we're gonna move to octave down forward. We're basically at noon on the direction knob right now. Yep. Now it's gonna go fifth up. So now we're on the forward part of it. So you get the idea. There's just a very slow ramp here, moving through fifths of a short sample in the count to 5. And so that's the dry output of it. And I said there's something else going on, which is I'm taking the output of that count to 5 and sending it to the Autobit, which is in a different parallel path than my matrise. So if I turn this knob up, what we're hearing is the count to 5 going through the Autobit. However, I do have this sequencer on the Autobit. Well, for one, I'm reducing the sample rate a little bit right here. But right there, what you heard was a little octave drop on the Autobit. So the Autobit has a sequencer, a 6-step sequencer in it, and I have a couple steps on it going down an octave. So what's happening is it's kind of lo-fiing the count to 5 a little more and doing additional kind of random pitch drops like that right there. So I'm sending that out of the first matrise. That's one of the main sounds that's happening. So I'm gonna move forward with how this gets processed, and then I'll show how the boomerang gets involved. So this is getting passed through. I'm gonna turn the dry off here and turn this up, because instead of just having this up all the time, which is just like, hey, I'm sending the audio through always, it gets kind of obnoxious, right? We're just hearing that sound over and over and over at different octaves, which is kind of cool, but still gets old. So instead of just sending that out, I send that to the gen loss, which is doing a big old low pass sweep. So, and I'm sweeping it from here. Let me go here for a second. I'm sweeping it from this position, if you can see that. Not like 3 o'clock. And the way I have it set is it's going to ramp all the way back to 0 and then back up to this over time. So if I turn this up, we'll hear that. And there's a little modulation involved. But now you can hear it filtering itself out. And it goes to nothing for a second, and then it'll start coming back. So we're removing a lot of that repetitive sound via the filter. So that's that part of it. I'm going to turn that down now. The other part of it is Blooper. So Blooper is in delay mode, meaning I have a time set for the loop, but I'm always in overdub. So it's always recording. My repeats are down. So like I said, it's a delay. Stuff gets recorded in there, and then it fades away over repetitions of the loop. But additionally, I have a modifier on that takes the input and reverses it and brings it down an octave. So what I'm doing is taking the output of gen loss and sending it to Blooper. I could send the dry. I could send this to Blooper, which would be okay, but I am instead sending this sound to Blooper, which is the filtered out gen loss. So what we'll hear then is that sound delayed later in time and down an octave and reversed via the Blooper. So that's this. So that's that. But then I thought it was kind of cool to have a little bit of the original gen loss in there. And so what that's going to sound like is it's going to be like ahead of the blooper. So I'll turn it up. So there's gen loss. And then we'll hear blooper do its thing like a little later. But there's kind of like an interplay there, like when gen loss is making sound, blooper may not be, you know? And vice versa. So that adds a lot of dynamics just with this. So that's cool. But all that's happening so far is everything's based on this count to 5 sample, which again is cool, but is a little repetitive, right? So that's that. But the last piece is the boomerang, and this is what makes it, I think, interesting. This is what makes it interesting to me. So I'm gonna let the clean come through here. On that side, and here, and here. So now what's happening is I'm sending the boomerang looper straight through all 3 blenders. Basically no other effect is in the chain now. But this is the part that is being played on top of everything. And it's a very, very sparse loop. There is a lot of space in it. Because I realized that the count to 5 ramping thing was so... There was a lot going on in it. I didn't need to add more. But yeah, and I think I just send that through. Well, and obviously I'm not sending the dry through, but it ends up going through gen loss as well, like this. It ends up going through blooper too. So those sounds will get processed in that way. Yeah, so if I turn up this, we'll get the layer of the 2 sounds. So we got count to 5 in this matrise providing that sound, and then boomerang sending through the dry signal, which blooper and gen loss are modifying as well. And so just here, the amount of asynchronous things that are happening are the timing of the count to 5 sample, so just the length of it, and the fact that I've got this random knob on it turned all the way up. A lot of American tradition. Yo, thanks for following. This random knob here is turned all the way up, so that even the starting sample in count to 5 will always be a little jumbled. So there's a little bit of randomness there. We're then sending that to Autobit, which is doing that 6-step sequencer, which every once in a while... Yo, Aaron, I'm recording a video! So I'll be with you in a moment, alright? Just wait a second. Autobit's doing the 6-step sequencer, so there's an octave drop every once in a while, okay? So that's some more generative action. And then all of that is being sent to gen loss, which is doing this really, really slow filter sweep. That in turn is being sent to blooper, which is just delaying it. And then adding all of that with just the long length of this boomerang loop means so many things are never going to land at the same time. And then, the additional good stuff here is the microcosm. Prediction music, yo, thanks for 2 months. So microcosm is in the classic mosaic mode D, and doing 2 octaves up and 2 octaves down with the sound. Very, very long time on it, so it'll take a while for us to hear. There it goes. So that's a little what the microcosm's adding. And then you put the polymoon and CXM back. That's some delay and reverb. Like that. And then you're good to go, folks. Mix cranked on Michael? No, it's at about where I put it to sound 50-50. Like if I put it at noon, that doesn't sound like 50-50 to me. It's at about like 2 o'clock to my ear. That's like unity. I'm going for unity there. Oh, and the last thing. I'm gonna turn these two off again.
You believe any of that shit?
Let's go. Guille. Last thing. I'm ramping the filter on microcosm. So I just went full mix on microcosm, folks. It's being controlled by this ramper. So the filter's open there for the twinkles to come through. And then it filters itself out again. Which is another kind of moving generative piece of this that allows all these parts to just land differently all the time. So,
nothing.
Yeah, nothing. So, and then you roll this back and get the dry signal involved with it a little bit.
What the fuck is this thing?
Exactly. So there you have it, folks. That's a what is this? A 16-minute deconstruction of this sound. How's that? I don't know. It sounds cool though, doesn't it? That was the wrong thing that was supposed to happen.
Christ.
But whatever. I'm done recording now. I'm stopping.